Nobody covers an NFL team better than Jason Wilde, the broadcaster, the writer. But we're delighted to have him on My Faith with Homer and Pip. Jason, welcome. It is indeed good to see you again.
I am excited to be on God Talk, as I like to call your program.
Right.
Thanks for having me.
I think it's God's timing, too. We are truly, truly grateful. Our producer is Brent Yunk, and Steve the Homer True had the vision for this podcast. We believe with the Holy Spirit. I'm Tommy Pippins. As always, Jason, Homer kicks it off.
It is My Faith, but Jason is correct. I've changed it to God Talk My Faith because of his great suggestion. And it's no different than Jason than anyone else. This is My Faith. And I'm always very curious to know how a person chooses to start their story. Take it away, Jason.
Ooh, well, I will. I'll save some of my controversial questions and takes for later, and I'll just go chronologically. Having gone to St. Paul's Lutheran School in West Allis, Wisconsin, from kindergarten on, and then having gone to high school at Martin Luther High School in Greendale. I think my faith has been a major part of my growing up. Obviously, I went to church and I went to school, and so I was much more indoctrinated is not the word I want to use here, but I was exposed to far more than someone who would have gone maybe to a public school or his parents didn't take him to church. I will say this, and this was one of the reasons why, other than my schedule, that I kept putting Homer off on this, is because I had a theology teacher and I also had a pastor who both used this analogy. And if you listen to Wilde and Tausch, you know that Homer joins us once a week. And at some point during his appearance, Tausch will probably try and give an analogy because he thinks he's the master of analogies. But this is one of my favorite analogies when it comes to faith. And they both use this. They said that your faith is like a glass of water. And when you're small, that your cup is small. And so it's very easy to fill your cup to the top and be full of your faith. And that the challenge is that as we get older and we experience different things in our lives, that same amount of water that filled up our cup when we were young, now our cup gets much larger and it doesn't fill it up all the way. And I think for those of us that are being honest about our faith and the challenges that we face as we try to keep the faith, if you will, I think I'm definitely in recent years have experienced the cup getting larger and maybe not as much water being in it. So it's, I think it's something that there's a number of reasons for it. And I think it's been a challenge for me and my relationship with God. And I continue to work through it. And I have some great friends who seem to make faith look a lot easier than it is for other people. You and John Kerry, from formerly the Mac Fund, retired from the Mac Fund, as he likes to say. But it is, I do think that it has become more difficult for me in recent years as compared to when I was young and I could do all the books of the Bible in order and could give you all kinds of great biblical references and tell you how I knew my catechism well.
The next question is always, from your faith as a child and your family, at some point, you have a decision. You're not at your house. You have a decision as to your faith, and it became important or didn't become important. Go back to that point in time for you, when it occurred and what happened.
Yeah, so I want to be clear. I haven't lost faith. I still believe from a core perspective what I've always believed. I think the people that have ruined Christianity for me in a lot of instances have been Christians. And this has been you wanted me to do this, so you're going to get the unvarnished truth. And it has been a struggle for me to watch inauthentic, fake Christians who don't seem to give a damn about what Jesus taught us and actually living their faith. They love going to the big church and they love talking about how they belong to church, but apparently they missed the times in the Bible when Jesus was helping the poor or the sick. We don't care about them. And so that has really been hard for me. I would say this, Paula and I went to a church in Green Bay here before the 2012 election. And this was a turning point for me. The pastor in the Lutheran church pulpit that day told me that if I voted for Barack Obama, I was going to hell. And that was when I said, what are we doing here? What exactly are we doing here? That you would stand in God's house and make a comment like that. And then obviously the 4 years from 2016 through 2020, with a guy who held the Bible upside down during a photo op and cheated on his wife with a adult film actress, and was to the level of a despicable human being that he was and is, and that so many Christians would embrace him. That was a real crisis for me with my faith. And so I have not attended church. I still pray. I still ask for forgiveness and repent for my sins. But it has made Christianity much harder for me. And I have never been more disappointed in a group of people, even Aaron Rodgers, when he has disappointed me during my career, than I have been in a lot of my fellow Christians. It is really hard for me. And when I'm on social media and I see people say really awful things, and then I look in their bio and it talks about how they love the Lord and Jesus, and they have a Bible passage in there, it makes me so angry that they would misrepresent Christianity with their behavior. I understand we are all sinners and we all fall short of the glory of God. I know my Bible passages, but if you don't live your faith, then I don't care how often you go to Sunday services, and I don't care that you say you're a Christian, act like a Christian, care about the people. You're not saved through works, you're saved through grace. I know that too, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to live your faith. And so to come on my faith and talk about my faith has been impacted by people who don't live the faith they claim to have. And that makes it very hard for me.
When have you in your life felt closest to God? When at any point has your faith been the strongest?
The easier question is the times where I felt like he was the farthest away.
That's the next question.
I will say this, and if I'm being completely honest, the reason that I did not say no to you, Homer, and I don't mean to neglect you over there, Pip. I know you're there. But we had an event for ESPN Milwaukee. Homer, do you remember this? It was a fan appreciation party. It was at Potawatomi Casino, maybe, or maybe it was at a golf course. We had a few of them over the years. But it was in 2014, after Tom Mulhern had died, who had been my mentor. And we had a conversation at it. And then a couple of years later, we lost Madison and Sydney's, she would have been their younger sister, Avery, halfway through Paula's pregnancy. And those both were really dark times for me. And in both instances, I wound up talking to you. I can't remember which one was at which, but both those times you gave me your, that it's okay to be mad at God and tell him that you don't like his plan. You've used that before, I assume, right?
Yes, I use it all the time. Everybody, not everybody, most get to a point at some point in which they go, I know this is part of God's plan, but we need a new planner. I'm sorry, that's not working for me this time. And It occurred to me, I don't have to go into the particulars. I think Pip and I talked about it when we did ours. But yes, I strongly believe in that. Yes.
Yeah, and so both those times, when I talked to you, and this is, you and John Kerry are probably the reasons why I agreed to do this, because John is a big, as you know, big fan of the show, both your radio show and this show. But I think the times that I've felt closest to him in my adulthood, because it's, again, going back to the analogy of the cup, it's easy to feel close to God when you're, in catechism class at St. Paul's. But I think the times where I felt closest were times when those two examples with you, or times when I talked to John, who has really been a second father to me. And frankly, in the last 15 years, more of a father than my actual father was. And so those are the times where you can feel God working through someone. Like, I'm not here to besmirch other people. I don't personally think that God actually speaks audibly to people. There are others that apparently think that occurs. That's fine with them. For me, I think he speaks through people. There's a great scene in one of my favorite TV shows, The West Wing, where Carl Malden is a priest, and he comes to visit President Bartlett, and they're talking about this thing that had happened that he was dealing with, and he said he prayed about it, and he said he never got any direction. And Carl Malden tells this great story about a man who is at his home during a flood, and the examples are, the guy comes by in a boat and says, "Here, come on, I'll take you to safety." And he says, "No, the Lord loves me. I pray God will save me." And then another guy comes in a helicopter and drops down a rope, and he says, "No, I pray God loves me. He'll save me." And then there's another example, and the guy dies, and he ends up face to face with God in heaven, and he says, "God, what happened? I pray, I love you. Why didn't you save me?" He said, "I sent you a guy in a helicopter, a rowboat, and I forget the other one. What the hell are you doing here?" And so I really do believe that whether it's agreeing to do this or those times, I do think that the Lord works through people. But and one of the other reasons why I agree to do this is because I want the cup to be more full than it is. But every time I come across these people that don't seem to really and truly understand what Christianity is about and don't live their faith, it makes it a little bit harder for me to be able to embrace mine.
I've tried to tell you this many times. Every answer you give is perfect because it's your answer. This isn't a test. And so now my next question is, when did you feel and have felt the furthest from God?
Yeah, I think it was after losing Avery. My personality is such that I try to protect myself from disappointment. And in that instance, I had been very, it had taken a long time and it hadn't happened. The girls were, Maddie was, I think, 5 and Sydney was 4. And so we had hoped to have them even closer together after those two. And then obviously what happened and we lost her. And it was one of those things where I let my guard down of getting I did not want to get my hopes up. We got to 20-week appointment and we found out it was a girl, and it was almost like all right, we've gotten halfway, we're okay. And then obviously it didn't end up being the case. And so I'm not a why me guy very much. And I've had a lot of, I don't complain about them a lot publicly, but there's been some difficult things. That my relationship with my family, it's one of the reasons why I get after you when you're questioning why Aaron Rodgers hasn't done a better job of connecting with his, is that, there are, eventually you get to a point with people that they have become too toxic and you need to, for your own well-being, you remove yourself from them. And so I have felt that far away at those times. I felt it when I was an 18-year-old freshman at the University of Wisconsin, and my best friend was killed by a drunk driver. I obviously felt it when we lost Avery. And I'm always fascinated by people like, that in those moments, they seem to say that that's when they feel the closest to God. And when Paula was diagnosed with breast cancer a year and a half ago, I didn't feel that close to him then. I talked to him. I mentioned maybe the planning thing not being so great. And I am thankful that she, with the help of her doctors and God's grace, is okay now. But I would say this, in the last decade and change, unfortunately, I think there's been more times where I felt further away than I felt closer.
Yeah, I'm okay with God's in a slump. I think that happens from time to time. I'm curious to have Pip ask questions because I want to know what you're thinking, Pip, and want to ask Jason.
Well, I don't know Jason nearly as well as you do or many others, but I've been blessed to be around him years ago in a working capacity, and more in recent years, and being a fan of any show he's on with Tausch, with you. And Jason, I've always sensed a goodness, and I've always sensed a man who has a heart for other people, who is a man of integrity. And through the suffering that you have shared, which pierces my own heart, I want to thank you for that. And I wonder what has kept you going. Is it that foundation at the beginning that helped you to see the cross and just be able to keep going forward, as difficult as it was, a step and a moment at a time?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. So first of all, I do think that my parents, deciding that would be the route I would go in terms of my education, I do think that does create a foundation. Now, our girls go to a public school. They do not go to a parochial school. But I think the biggest thing that I have tried, and I appreciate what you said about me, is that I've always found that part of it, of being good or caring about other people, that has always been, that really has defined who I am. We have a saying around here, and the girls get tired of hearing it, but I always tell them, we do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. We don't do the right thing so we can be told how good we are. We don't do the right thing so we get some sort of benefit from it. We do the right thing because we know we know the difference between right and wrong around here. So we're not going to choose to do the wrong thing. Now, you're not going to be perfect. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. So do you. But I also like to steal a line from the Packers' new offensive coordinator, Adam Stenovich. He likes to say, let's make new mistakes. Let's not make the same mistakes over and over again. If you're going to make mistakes, but let's make sure they're new mistakes. And so I think that can be applied to the way you live your life. We do the right thing because we know that that's what's right. And that's how I have operated as a parent. That's how I've tried to operate as a person. Again, my understanding is there was only one guy that was perfect, and I am not him. So I get it. But I think it's possible to aim for that. And yes, you're going to fall short at times, but I've always lived by the belief that I can have a pretty high batting average as long as I want to have a high batting average on that. And so, I mean, do I think that going to church as a kid and learning all the things that if your kids don't go to a Lutheran school, you don't learn them as closely, or a Catholic school or whatever? Yeah, I do think that had an impact on me. But again, I think I can also look at classmates of mine, people that I know that have sent their kids through that. And that's not enough. Like, being exposed to that, you still have to make the choice to live in a manner that fits what your belief system is. And again, that's, I think, where my frustration has come in recent years. So my hope is that if you teach your children well, and you make sure that they understand not only the faith component, but just your actions have to match your belief system, then I think that allows, hopefully anyway, them, even though they're not having the same exposure I had as a kid, to have the same type of moral compass that I had as a kid that I've had the entire time. And hopefully that, you know, that it's one of the, look, as a parent, I worry about just about everything. I was not a worrier before I had kids, but this is a great example of something that I worry about a lot in terms of, am I putting them in the best position to succeed as good Christian believing kids? And am I giving them the foundation? Because we're not taking the same approach that my parents took. And so that is something that I worry about. And that's something that I think about a lot.
I love your candor. I think it will bless many, Jason, when Brent gets this posted, and full of gratitude for that. I love the cup analogy. I think you are a man who lives his faith. I thought that before we did this, and even more so now. Could we talk a little bit, please, about surrender and trust in Jesus? That seems to be the biggest problem for me, and I think many, wanting to control, and then reaching a point where we know, as you have experience with Paula, where we can't control that part.
Yeah. I mean, what's the phrase? It's let go and let God. Yeah, I can't, I don't do it very well at all. Because again, I do think that there's also, now I'm not a oncologist, so there, you get dealt something like Paula's breast cancer, and I can't control that. Obviously, that's not my chosen area of expertise. I don't do anything nearly as important as that. I talk on the radio and write about football. But I do think that, again, we do have free will, and there are things. I've always found that phrase to be a little irritating to me, because yes, there are certain things that you have to give over to him, but there are plenty of others that you have plenty of control over, based on how you deal with things. And so, I've always, again, in complete candor, I've thought that when you say let go and let God, that you're abdicating your own responsibility to some degree. And so I think it's important to understand in which instances you should and really have no choice but to surrender. But like I try not for my prayers to be to ask for something. I try to, I'm sorry, I'm tired of hearing Aaron Rodgers talk about gratitude all the time, because I think if you live a life of gratitude, you probably don't have to say how grateful you are constantly. And so I try to have that gratitude for the blessings that we have in our life. I don't do well with Paula has breast cancer, let your will be done. No, I want her around because the girls need her. They need her more than they need me, frankly, and do not take her away from me. That my prayers were not what I was taught to pray when I was at St. Paul's. They weren't. They were, I need her for another 40 years. So could you get us through this, please? I don't ask for much. Can you help me with this one? So if that counts as surrender, I will take it. But, I also, without getting too morbid, for whatever reason, one of the things, especially now that, the girls are 12 and almost 11, but I have found before they were born, I never worried about dying. Never did. I mean, it just never crossed my mind. I don't think that was like youthful belief that you're invincible. It just never thought about it. Now I think about it way too much. I worry about, I was just telling Paula this yesterday, like, I don't want to think that way. And this would be an instance where you have to surrender to God's plan, but I just can't bring myself to do it. I am worried about that all the time. I made appointments to, see a cardiologist because I had concerns about that, because I had several friends of mine who died of heart attacks recently. So I don't, I don't know how effectively I do the surrendering, because if you were surrendering to God, you wouldn't worry, right? Isn't that what we're taught when we're in Bible class or in theology class? For me, when I was growing up, like, there's nothing to worry about. You shouldn't worry, which is easy to say and much harder to do in practice.
Mhm.
All right, Pip, I'm butting in here because I want to emphasize what you said, and that is, Jason, you'll never know how appreciative we are, because most people with a faith where yours is, I'm not sure they would agree to do this. And that takes away from what I want this to be all about. And that is, whatever it is, it is. So I have only a couple. Do you believe that God loves you?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
And is it fair to say that your faith is a work in progress, and that there's a belief of something there, and you're still trying to figure it out, not the way you were taught, but the way your life has gone?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not embittered. Let me be clear. I haven't lost my faith in God. I have lost my faith in people to some degree. And I will occasionally see Donald Trump on television and literally look at my ceiling and say, God, why do you allow this guy to continue to do what he's doing? Why? Because you have a bunch of people that claim to believe in you that follow this man who is perhaps the worst person that, like, I remember being in school and being taught about how the devil worked through people, right? We talked about that all the time. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't think he needs a neon sign over him. I think it's pretty clear the devil is using him. So, hey, maybe you could take a little focus off of other people and get this guy taken care of, okay? Because he is leading a bunch of your believers in a very dangerous path, and then some of them have gone way far down already, and you're not getting them back. So if you want to know where yes, God loves me. And yes, in everyone's life, there are heartbreaks and challenges and disappointments, because that's what sin has brought. I get it. So I am not like mad at God at all, other than the fact that he is allowed, for however you want to view it, maybe alloved's not the word, but he is allowed that Christianity to be corrupted by people that are fake Christians. And that's the one thing I'm mad at God for. And I want to know how he's going to fix it. What are you going to do about this? Because, okay, there's, the scandals with priests and whatever else that has happened to the church. I get it. But this is the worst thing that, in my opinion, has faced Christianity, is that evangelical believers have gone down a path where they have forgotten what Christianity is about and caring about other people. And there are a lot of people that don't care about anyone else other than either themselves or people that look like themselves. And that, to me, is not Christianity. And I want to know how he's going to fix it. So if next time you guys, when you chat with him, because I've been asking him for a while, you ask him what he's going to do about this. Let me know what his plan is when he speaks to you.
No, I will ask when you get an answer and he answers you, and what your answer is then, because that to me is what it's all about. But I'll let Pip finish, but I just want to really thank you. I'm so grateful that for everything you've said, because it is the foundation of why I wanted to do my faith. One, I hope you watch and listen to this, and I'm curious to how you feel about it. But as Pip said, I can't imagine all the people that will watch or listen and feel like you or have felt like you. This is a part of the game. And game's probably not the right word, but and I look forward to the day when God touches you and you have an answer to all these questions that you are comfortable with, because I guarantee you it's going to happen. I just don't know when.
You just can't help yourself. It's always got to be 0% or 100%. I guarantee it'll happen.
Yes. This my faith, it's part of God's faith. His resume is horrible. Bad things have been happening for years and he lets them occur. In terms of touching people's heart and allowing them to find something that gives them a peace of mind, I think he is very close to 100%.
Okay. Well, I look forward to you being proven right on that one, like you
I-
have been on a number of other things that I still can't believe you have been.
All right, Pip, you can close. Thanks, Jason, really.
And I would just say ditto. And Jason Wilde, I think we can safely say, is steadfast. So I think he will get that answer. And Jason, I still feel like I want to pepper you with Packers questions and Aaron Rodgers to 22, but there are times I look at the cross and that's, I guess, the faith and hope in the midst of killings and shootings and little ones dying, and that we never, the unity has been going on, I guess, since the beginning of time. You know that because you know your Bible, that Jesus will come back and there will be the ultimate victory. But I look at the cross and the wounds and I say, he died for me and for my sins. And why do I have a tough time at times forgiving someone for nothing, relatively speaking? Is that forgiveness factor difficult for you as it relates to people who disappoint you?
Oh, yes, no doubt about it. It is probably, I mean, I can, I don't want to use up any more time, but I could give a laundry.
Keep going.
Yeah. No, I should be honest about that. I just don't want to list all the bad qualities I have, but one of them is I'm not very good at forgiveness at all. It is, if you do something that I determine to be beyond the I don't want to say unforgivable, but if there is a accumulation of things that it is one of my failings. There's no doubt about it. It is something that I've worked to get better at. I think I've improved in some areas, but there are others where I haven't when it comes to that. You know, I would just say this before my time is up. And I think this is one of the things that I wanted to convey as I was thinking about what I was going to talk about with you guys, is that I am lucky in that, and I know that they have difficult times too, that they have gone through. I totally understand that. But, you know, for example, someone that you spent a large portion of your career with at Channel 6 is Tim Van Voren. And I think about Tim and the kind of husband he is, the kind of dad that he is, the kind of person he is. Like, one of my favorite things to do, and I'm not proud of this, is to try and get Tim to say something bad about someone. Right? I mean,
Challenge you.
He's way better at that than me, because there are times when somebody deserves to have something negative said about them, and darn it, I'm going to be the one who's going to be willing to say it, because I'm going to be honest. And he has a great way of never going low. You know, what's the old saying? When they go low, we go high. He always goes high. I do not have to go back to the batting average. Tim's he'd be in the Hall of Fame. That's for sure. He's got to be. I know no one bats 1,000, but he's got to be close. And I mentioned John Kerry. He faces cancer. He faces all the challenges that his different kids have faced. He faces, you know, some things in his professional life that have been, in my opinion, wrong. And yet he never loses his faith. And I've always said to him, I wish I could be more like you in that. And maybe someday I'll get to that point, maybe with age and wisdom. But I am fortunate that I have people that give me a bar to shoot for. But as we record this, I'm definitely not anywhere close to that bar that I'd like to be. So yeah, it is a work in progress. And I hope that talking about it under these, you know, in this forum has not only been helpful to maybe other people who watch it and say, oh, I feel the same way. I've been in that place, but hopefully there's some catharsis for me as well. Cause pardon the pun, but Lord knows I promised Homer I would do this. I was going to do it, but I was going to be honest throughout. And I think we can all agree that that's exactly what has occurred here.
Well, you have exceeded expectations, and very honestly, our hope, and if I may say so, prayer is that it would be helpful to you as well, because I know it's been a blessing to many, and your humility is right there with TVV and the Homer as well, always loving and serving. So thank you for that example. Homer, I think if I ask any more, I'll be overdoing it with both of you great gentlemen. So what do you have to say, if anything?
I agree with that.
Very good. Very good. Jason, Wilde, thank you very much to you, to Paula, to your children. God bless you. Happiness and health and prosperity. For me, this has been a real treat to get to see you.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Pip. Thanks, Homer.
You bet. Thank you.
With our producer, Brent Young, and Steve the Homer True, he had the vision for My Faith with Homer and Pip. We hope and pray that this wonderful example of Jason sharing himself with us and his faith story will be a blessing to you. It's easy, but we do believe there's victory at the end. God bless you, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in.